By definition, an antenna is a metal whip designed to receive and transmit radio signals within a given area.
It's BS in the Morning on KSLQ and Westplex 107.1.
Okay, so where's Shelley? I don't hear her. She's not here. What happened to Shelley? Let's call her and see what's going on. Let's call her. Come on, we got to do this. We can't just not take advantage of a situation like this, right? Okay, here we go. Turn on the old phone. There's one ring. 2 rings. 3 rings. It's going to be one of those days, I can tell. 4 rings. We're going to get voicemail.
You have reached the voicemail.
Here we go.
Shelley.
Well, you know what? This is the BS show. I'm Shelley, and she's not Brad because she's not here right now. So we come here every morning, Monday through Friday, 6 to 8 in the morning, and we do stuff on the radio. Yes, we do stuff on the radio. What do we do stuff on the radio? Think about stuff. What's stuff? Translate that into another S word, right? That's essentially what we do. Lots of stuff to talk about this morning. Crazy stuff in the news, as there is almost every day nowadays. Just bizarre, weird stuff. We'll talk about the fact that there's a balloon club. Matter of fact, let me find this real quick, which I thought was really interesting. This balloon club is called the, where is this? Where'd it go? It's called the, where did it go? I had it here last night. Here's something about Biden's earned 106. No, that's the wrong day. I'll look at the wrong day. That's the problem. Okay, here we go. Here's where we're talking about. It's called the Commercial Fire Launch in 15 Years. John Fetterman, Entertainment Tonight, Disney employees. I thought I saved it. I guess I didn't. Anyway, a club in Illinois has come out and said, hey, you guys, you know, America, USAF, you shot down one of our balloons. And apparently, I didn't realize this. See if I can find it here. I know I saved it somewhere on here. Drives me nuts when I do this. Here it is, right? Here's the article. Okay, it's out of Aviation Week. And the headline of the article is, Hobby Club's Missing Balloon Feared Shot Down by USAF. Okay, and it talks about a middle school class learns how to use a Scientific Balloon Solutions Pico balloon. And this is a company called Scientific Balloon Solutions. So there goes my alarm. What's going on there? John Combes, 12 feet. Here's a good one. Discuss long. Okay, I'll do that one too. Okay, I'll get all sorts of suggestions for the show this morning. Anyway, this where did it go again? Boy, can you tell I'm prepared this morning? Here, I'll send this. I sent this to my son last night. Anyway, the club, it's called, get this. The club is called the Northern Illinois Bottle Cap Balloon Brigade. NIBBB is not pointing fingers yet, but the circumstantial evidence at least is intriguing. The club's silver-coated party-style Pico balloon reported its last position on February 10th at 38,910 feet off the west coast of Alaska, and a popular forecasting tool, the HySplit, HySplit model provided by NOAA, that's the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, projected the cylindrically shaped object would be floating high over the central part of the Yukon Territory on February 11th. That is the same day a Lockheed Martin F-22 shot down an unidentified object of a similar description and altitude in the same general area. There are suspicions among other prominent members of the small Pico ballooning enthusiast community, which combines ham radio and high-frequency or high-altitude ballooning into a single relatively affordable hobby. And essentially what they're saying is these balloons, and I'm going like, okay, now hold on. And the balloons cost, are you ready for this? Between $12 and $180 a piece. Think about it. The United States government shot down a $12 balloon with a $400,000 missile. Retired FedEx engineer Tom Medlin says, I'm guessing they were probably Pico balloons. He's a co-host of Amateur Radio Roundtable Show. Aviation Week contacted a host of government agencies, including the FBI, NORAD, the National Security Council, NSC Office of Secretary of Defense, for comment about the possibility of Pico balloons. The NSC did not respond to repeated requests. The FBI and OSD did not acknowledge that harmless Pico balloons are being considered as possible identities for the mysterious objects shot down by the Air Force. I have no update for you from NORAD on these objects, the NORAD spokesman said. On February 15th, NSC spokesman John Kirby reported that all three objects could, quote, just be balloons tied to some commercial or benign purpose, but he did not mention the possibility of Pico balloons. Essentially, what these guys do, it's a hobby. They get these balloons, and what's interesting is apparently they're very small, because I'm thinking to myself, isn't there like an FAA rule against that? No. Apparently the FAA rule is if the balloon weighs less than 6 pounds, you can do it absolutely positively, totally unlicensed. No FAA license, no end tail number, anything like that. Bizarre. Anyway, that's the interesting story this morning. If Shelley comes along, we'll talk more about that. Anyway, it is 6:21. We're going to take a break, and hopefully Shelley will be along. If not, I'm out of here. I'm going back to bed. That's all there is to it. It's 6:21. I always love how that ends. It's just gone. Good morning to you. It's BS.Show. I'm Shelley. She's Brad. Together we make BS. And I have no idea what happened to Shelley. And, at this point in time, I guess I get a little worried because I believe I heard from her earlier. She normally calls me early and wakes me up. I don't know what's going on here. Let's look at this. Recent calls. We do that. We do this. We'll hit this again. And we'll see if she's still incommunicado. 6:28. It is a Friday, my favorite day of the entire week. Although it ain't nothing unless I have a co-host. Just like last week. She wasn't here last week, but of course she had some doctor kind of stuff she had to do last week. Don't you hate it when you have to do doctor stuff? Most doctors, except for Dr. Weichert, you don't want to go see. They always have bad news for you. They always tell you, you weigh too much.
You have reached the voice.
Your cholesterol's too high. That kind of stuff. You don't get enough sleep. You're not eating the right kind of stuff. You need to eat those supplements. You need to eat vitamins. You need to, do whatever you're not doing. That's what you need to do. That's how doctors are, for the most part. And then you look at them, and they're 400 pounds overweight, and they got a cigarette in their mouth, and they got a drink. They're slamming back a couple brewskis while they're talking to you. You believe this? If you go look at some of these old videos, actually not really videos they are videos now, but they were originally film. The doctor's in his office smoking. Yes, the doctor is smoking in his office. He's got patients and he's smoking while he's taking care of patients. How things have changed. Some sad news. I don't know if you saw this yesterday. Bruce Willis's family has come out and said that he has essentially Alzheimer's. And I know it's something like CFT, conformal frontal lobe transmuscular. It's some weird medical term, but apparently there's a part of his brain that's not functioning anymore. If you remember last year, that came out that he has aphasia, which is really sad. My mom, I've talked about this before. My mom worked with mainly kids, but she did some adults. My mom was a speech and hearing therapist. And one of the problems that people have when they have like a stroke or something like that, aphasia, is that it affects the part of the brain that makes you talk, essentially. There are certain things you can't do. You have trouble with, certain things that normally you and I take for granted doing every day. And it affects a lot of people's speech. And apparently the next step in what's happening with Bruce Willis is that this is what's happened, and now he has essentially lapsed into the Alzheimer's phase because of brain problems. And I'm going like, God, this is so sad. 67 years old. Think about it. All the incredible movies the guy's been in. The big movie that turned him into like the megastar. Because up until that, he was just like, you remember back in the day, you were a second-class citizen if you did TV. Now, that's where the money's at. Essentially, it's a different realm. We're talking back in the day was broadcast TV on ABC, NBC, CBS, one of the three networks. And then Fox came along. But still, that was like second-class citizen. If you were a real actor and you made buku bucks, you were on the big screen. They called it big screen, small screen. Big screen, small screen. Not anymore. Matter of fact, a lot of people have some huge screens in their house now. But back in the day, a big screen was probably, and the dimensions were different. Now it's what they call the aspect ratio is 16 to 9, which means it's almost It's almost twice as wide. It's actually a little bit taller than it is wider, if that makes any sense. If it were 16 to 8, it would essentially be 2 to 1. So it'd be 2 times as wide as it is high. But it's a little bit wider a little bit taller. That's the new aspect ratio that almost your computer monitors are. As a matter of fact, your phone, everything's pretty much 16 to 9. Back in the day, it was 4 by 3. And you were on the little screen. And then if you made the jump to the big screen, like Bruce Willis did, then, oh my God, you were a star. Now, there's all these people, stars who are making gazillion dollars by doing stuff for Netflix and Amazon and things like that. They're making more money doing television than, which essentially it is. Think it's still video. It's not, the idea being is film, they put it on film, even though there's no film anymore for most theaters. It's all electronic projection. But you'd go to the theater and you'd sit and you'd watch the movie, and then maybe 3 or 4 years later, the movie would be released and you'd see it on TV. Now, you got stuff that's being done. We talked about this yesterday. The Winnie the Pooh movie, because the copyright is expired on Winnie the Pooh, at least the first book, and there's a guy in England who's created a slasher movie which debuted yesterday. I have to check that, see if they got box office in that. They said they pre-released it in Mexico, and it already made $700,000. Now, the guy probably spent $50,000 making it. Now, keep in mind, if they made $700,000, he doesn't get all $700,000. The theaters get a chunk of that, and the distribution company gets a chunk of that. But essentially, he's in the black, and it hasn't even hit the American theaters yet. And then there's also DVD. Well, not necessarily DVD, but somebody will probably buy it up. Netflix or Amazon or somebody will buy it up. And essentially, what he's done is he's turned Winnie the Pooh into a slasher. And I read the story. Robin, what's his name? I can't remember. I hated Winnie the Pooh. I always thought that was stupid when I was a kid. Winnie the Pooh. Why would you name a bear after Pooh? Why would you name a radio station after Pooh? Crap. Why would you do that? Don't know. Anyway, that was the deal with that movie. Shelley, one more time, and you know what? I'm going back to bed. That's all there is to it. The advantages of being the HMIC, which I am. Think about that for a minute. I can't even talk this morning. Here we go. The advantage of. Here we go. One more time, and then I'm out of here. Hey, guess what? We're on the radio.
Look, Mom, I'm on the radio.
Where are you?
Not on the radio.
You know what time it is?
I do. I just woke up.
Okay, I'm not trying to be a jerk, but you know what?
What?
If you're not on the radio after the next set of commercials, I'm going back to bed.
I don't blame you. I don't. I really don't.
You called
what
me.
Time is it?
You called me this morning at 5, didn't you?
Did I?
Well, I think you did. I remember that. I do remember that.
I don't remember that. No. Yes, I will be up there in about 3 minutes.
Hey.
What?
I don't want to pull rank on you, but I am the HMFIC. If you're not here by the next break, you know what that means, don't you?
Yeah, I do. Yes, Brad, I totally know what that means, and I think everybody else does too.
No, nobody knows what that is.
No, they really do.
No, you don't sound like you just woke up. You sound like perky. You sound like your normal self.
Oh, that's because I knew you were calling me, and I just got all excited.
It's because the drugs. Is that what it is?
Pretty much. Okay, so how can I get ready when you're jibber jabbering with me?
I'm jibber jabbering with you?
Mm-hmm.
Is that what we call this? Jibber jabber?
We call it something.
You put our incredibly complicated talks. I mean, like, I've got people from NPR calling me up and going like, oh my God, we listened to BS in the morning, BS.Show last week, and you guys are so good. You say things so complicated, and you use words that nobody else understands, and you talk about quantum physics, and you talk about very, very arcane aspects of the law, and you talk about how Republicans are all jerks and how Donald Trump should be tarred and feathered. We have to get you on NPR. That's what they did. They called last week, but I didn't tell you about
Yeah,
that.
and then they said, and Brad, leave us alone.
And I said to him, so if I come to work at NPR, do I get my own chef? Oh, your own chef, your own valet, your own personal driver, you get a valet at your house, and we'll put a pool in your backyard, and we'll give you not a pool boy, but a pool girl. I'm going,
Oh,
wow,
my goodness.
how can I?
Her name is Amber. Hey, hi, Amber.
How can I pass on a deal like that? And of course, this is government paid for by the government. Oh, of course, everything we do is paid for by the government. We leave no expense unturned because when it's the government's money, we can just spend money like it's our money. But it's not. It's everybody else's money, but we treat it like it's our money, and we don't really care what we spend it on. I say, well, let me run it by Shelley. I don't know if Shelley's going to be real happy about this.
I'm sure that's just what you said.
But see, we'd have to talk. See, if we move her to NPR, we'd have to say, here's how we'd have to do it.
Oh, my gosh. I was listening. Sorry.
Hold it. Here's how we have to do it.
Oh.
Good morning. It's 6:37. My co-host is Shelley Barr. Shelley, good morning to you.
Good morning, Brad.
I was reading the New York Times this morning, and there's 14 new articles that talk about how Donald Trump is such a bad person. And what's refreshing is there are 4 articles talking about what a great humanitarian Hunter Biden is. Did you read that article?
I did not read that article.
Oh, my God. It's fascinating. Just last week,
I'm sure it was a page turner.
there was a lady who was walking down the street, and apparently she was not paying attention to oncoming traffic, and she walked across the street, and an oncoming car almost collided with her, so a man jumped out and ran across the street and tackled her and said, "My name is Hunter Biden. I just saved your life." And she says, "Oh, my God, I'm so glad I voted for your father." You didn't read that article, Shelley?
I missed it.
Well, Shelley, you know what? We have to play these commercials, which are actually commercials, but we've disguised them as non-commercials so we can make more money from organizations like the Ford Foundation and Bill Gates and his lovely wife, who unfortunately divorced him because she claims that he indulged in some dalliances with this Epstein guy. But we all know that's not true because we are NPR.
We are NPR.
Get ready.
Okay. Give me 3. Bye.
I'll give you more than 3. I'll give you 4. How's that?
Oh, that's very decent of you, Brad. Thank you. Bye.
It is 6:39. It is BS.Show. I'm Shelley. She's Brad. Together we make BS. It is 6:45. And you know what? Hold on a minute. Let me see if I can find Shelley real quick. Where is she? Hold on a minute. Is this her right here? Hold on. I think I got Shelley right here. She's still on the phone. She's not in her studio yet. See if she's going to answer the phone this time.
Hey, Brad, what's happening?
Is this Shelley? Oh, I thought I was calling Shelley.
It's definitely Shelley. This is Shelley Barr.
Oh, that's who I thought.
Yeah. Hey, listen. Ask me a question, Brad, and I'll do my Shelley Barr impression. Let's get us all on the air.
Okay.
Hey, here's my Shelley Barr impression. Ready?
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I'm going to do a Brad Hildebrand, and then I'm going to do a Shelley Barr.
Oh,
Hey, Shelley. Shelley, I was just reading an article about the 1968 World Series, and you know how Kurt Flood was gonna slide, and then Lou Brock told him not to. You remember that, don't you, Shelley? And Shelley says, "No, Brad, I don't." And Brad says, "You don't remember? You don't remember Bill Freehan, the catcher, standing there when Lou Brock was going to come in?" And then smartest woman in the world texts and says, "Brad, leave Shelley alone. She clearly doesn't remember the 1968 World Series." And then we just go from there. That's act 1 of the play, Brad. It's mostly you lecturing Shelley about some obscure fact. You don't know who Susanna Hoffs is. She's the lead singer of the Bangles. You don't remember Susanna Hoffs? And Shelley says, "No, Brad, I don't really remember Susanna."
So, John, you're telling me the show sucks? Is that what you're telling me?
No, absolutely not. I love it because we're all here's what I love most is that we're rooting. like for Shelley to first of all throat punch you, which would get her thrown off her Facebook, but also we're rooting for Shelley. We're like, clearly, Brad, Shelley does not remember this obscure musical or aeronautical fact. And then you have smartest woman in the world weighing in, and who I love, by the way, and I've never met her. But you have smartest woman in the world weighing in, saying, Brad, here's the facts. Just let Shelley go, right? Anyway, it's great. And that's my Shelley Barr impression. That's act one of the stage play that we'll put together.
John Combest, who, by the way, how's the book going, by the way?
Hey, it's going well. My favorite part of the book is when I'm driving and I have 107.1 on, and at about 34 minutes after the hour, I hear my own voice.
You hear
and
you.
I mean, I think that's everybody's dream, is to be riding down the road and hear their own voice. So, for the sake of being self-glorifying. No, it's great. And I keep getting good feedback on it. I've told Brad this before privately, but the book is the most meaningful thing I've done. Certainly professionally or politically, or I'm sorry, professionally or personally.
Well, let's give some background here, because you and I are talking about, and I've done a terrible thing. I have not officially introduced you. You're John Combest, who we've had on the show here before. Matter of fact, you are on our other station, Podcaster, and can I mention the company you used to work for? Is that okay?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay, John used to be what's called a comms guy at Monsanto. And you have an interesting job, because Monsanto, an agribusiness company, you went all over the world, like looking at crops and things like that, and talking to farmers and things like that, right?
Well, I was based here in the U.S., and for the first part of my career, I was here in the United States. Yeah, and so I worked on a lot of issues. If you remember back in the 2000s, late 2000s, there was still a big controversy about GMOs, and their safety. So yeah, I mean, I was blessed to be able to work in that field, in an area when it was really controversial. And really, Brad and I have talked about this before too, but most of your listeners will remember how controversial GMOs were 20 years ago.
Oh yeah.
And there's no controversy about it today, because the science is settled.
Everybody was saying
on the safety of it.
Everybody was saying if you ate and GMOs are genetically manipulated? Isn't that what is genetically
modified organism?
Modified organism. Yeah. Okay, orgasm. Excuse me.
Yeah, that'll. You know what? Shelley should use that as a drop on you, Brad.
That's right.
Brad saying genetically modified organism.
Yeah, that's not what an organism. Okay, so the idea being, and what people were afraid of, if you ate GMO wheat, you're going to grow a third leg, right? Wasn't that what the deal was?
Yeah, that was essentially what it is.
Right,
yeah.
And you're going to have horns come out of your head, and you're going to have 12 fingers and stuff like that. Okay, so that's what you did, and then you were around during the beginning of social media impacting the corporate world, correct?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And it was when, and I came to Monsanto in 2008, which is really when Twitter was exploding. And, the cool thing about Twitter, as everybody knows, is it gave ordinary people like me and Brad and the rest of us an opportunity to tweet directly at CEOs who in some cases had this technology on their desk during the workday. And all of a sudden, people are talking directly to these executives, which of course made people in the corporate world freak out, right?
Yes,
Part of your value when you're doing executive communications, we called it executive voice, but it's really ghostwriting, is trying to put a fence up in some cases around your executives so that they don't get distracted by shiny objects. Well, there's not much more of a shiny object than somebody tweeting at you in the course of a day.
Right. And the interesting thing about it is, what I always get a kick out of is, if you know some of these people, which who I do, that then you see like a statement that's issued by them, you go like, that's not how he talks.
Right, of course.
You know what I mean? Like, he doesn't talk like that at all. Because it's always very stilted. It's sort of like listening to NPR. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly. I enjoyed the thread earlier where you were talking to Shelley about that. Well, and remember too, to give a break to the folks who do these kind of corporate communications, and in St. Louis, whether it's your big corporations or your smaller ones, but particularly the bigger ones, the comms people generally put out something with a little bit of meaning or substance, and then you send it to legal, and you just have it's obliterated. So, for example, we wouldn't be able to say, if me and Shelley and Brad put out a statement saying the Friday show, a Break the Format Friday, was a great time for listeners. Legal would send it back and say, break the format Friday has the potential under the right circumstances to provide some listeners with a positive short-term experience.
Boy, you're good at this. That's exactly what they would say. And what's frustrating to me is, and I don't, you and I delve into politics, but being a guy who spent his entire life in the media, that to me is what the attraction to Donald Trump was. He was an average guy. He talked like we talked. He didn't talk in crazy corporate speak or stuff like that. And
that's what people, I agree with you completely. And, the great thing, and one of the reasons why the media secretly loved Donald Trump, and we see this firsthand, anybody that deals with the media, there was no way, if you're a 23-year-old TV reporter for a second-rate, let's say, small cable station, there's no way that George W. Bush or Barack Obama or Joe Biden is going to give you 30 seconds a week. But Donald Trump would get off that helicopter and he would take questions until there were no more questions.
I know.
So if you're that young 23-year-old reporter who's not going to get on TV any otherwise, you get on, you're able to ask Donald Trump a question, and then you get on your news broadcast and you say, oh, and when Donald Trump got off that plane, I held him to account and I asked him why he was doing that. And here's what Donald Trump told me.
But see,
so then you have these great clips for your sizzle reel, if sizzle reels still exist.
Yes.
And you're able to say, look, I've directly questioned U.S. presidents before. So the media secretly loved Donald Trump. And look at, the proof is in the numbers. The proof is in what the ratings said after Trump essentially went away or went more quiet. Trump was brilliant for the news media.
Well, CNN's ratings and MSNBC's ratings are in the toilet because nobody.
There's just not any. But back to your point about the, and you've mentioned it too, Brad. Like in your past, when you would want to interview folks on the radio, and you would have a version of me as a man or a woman, a comms person, be like, well, you can talk to them, but you just don't ask about these 4 subjects.
Right.
And it's like, then what's the point of having the conversation if we can't have a conversation?
Well, what I always get was the people would say to me, the comms people would say, can you send me the list of questions you're going to ask?
Yeah.
And I would, but I have no list. I never have a list.
Yeah.
And they go, well, you don't prep for these interviews? Yeah, I read stuff, but you know what? I just go with the flow. You know what I'm saying? I mean, if I did an interview yesterday with Gina Grad, I don't know who she is. She's a big LA radio personality and has been internationally for several years because she was with Adam Carolla. She was on Adam Carolla's daily podcast. And she's written an interesting book. She was never married before, and she got married to a guy who had a kid, and she's written a book called My Extra Mom. Essentially, she's the extra mom. Really interesting book. Talks about, things that blended families can do to, get everybody on the same page. But what's interesting was she's a radio person. I'm a radio person. I email her. I go, hey, let's get together. We'll do this interview on we did it on Zoom. And we just say, okay, here, you ready to go? Yeah. Okay, let's go. And we just go.
Yeah.
And it's very natural. She's obviously she's a very talented woman, and it was very easy to interview. And the sad thing is there are people out there that are really good, glib people, like in politics and in corporate world, but they can never show that off. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. And exactly to that point, on the corporate side especially, or the political side, the fear of saying one thing wrong, the fear of having in 2006 your macaca moment where you call somebody some obscure slur, or your fear of having one of those Howard Dean moments where you scream on stage. In the corporate world, folks live in fear of having one verbal misstep that's played over and over and over again.
Do you mean like the one that happened yesterday? This one?
No, I don't know this one.
Don Lemon, have you heard this one?
Oh, I heard the Don Lemon past your prime comment.
Yes, he said Nikki Haley, how old is Nikki Haley? She's not that old.
She's fifth. I want to say you guys talked about it on the show yesterday. She was born in 72. You guys looked it up.
Yes, that's
so
right.
She's 50 or 51.
Okay, so Don Lemon said that Nikki Haley was past her prime, right?
And here's the thing. I mean, with respect to all the diversity of folks in the Westplex and here in Chesterfield who listen to the station, for Don Lemon to be now. Maybe if Don Lemon was talking about Nikki Haley in terms of breeding, in terms of making babies, which is an entirely different concept for Don Lemon to be talking about. But maybe he meant in a biological sense. Let's give him the benefit of the doubt, right? He's a very objective news reporter, Brad. I don't know why you would be questioning.
Yeah, right.
Because I don't know why you would be questioning Don Lemon's objectivity on such topics. On a Republican woman.
Well, and what was interesting was he used to do a nighttime show by himself. Now he's doing a morning show, sort of like a Today, a Good Morning America kind of thing. And the two women co-hosts went after him. What do you mean she's past her prime? And the interesting thing was I heard that, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, first off, dude, we're talking about, women who are, and men as well too. I mean, so in other words, if she's 51 and she's past her prime, what does that make Joe Biden? What does that make? And I don't know if you saw this thing the other day that was sad to me, that Barbara Boxer, do you know this whole crazy weird story?
I don't know.
Barbara Boxer, the official, I think she's like 70. I mean, she might even be in her 80s.
She's in her 80s.
Okay.
At least in her 80s. Yeah.
She's the senator, one of the two senators from California, and the announcement came on that she's not going to run for re-election. She's going to retire at the end of this term. And she comes out, and the reporters start asking about this, and she doesn't know anything about it. She's going like, I don't know what you're talking about.
I hadn't seen this at all.
And the sad part of it is, she's just gone. Let's be honest. Her mind is just, and it's sad when we get that way. I talked about, if you heard me earlier, talk about that's what's happening with Bruce Willis. I mean,
I did hear that.
It's so sad because they're still functional human beings. They still have a body. They're still walking around. They're still eating. They're still, conversing with you. But they're like resorting to a 2 or 3-year-old. It's got God.
Yeah.
Somebody
and there's a difference between that and, kind of the Weekend at Bernie's phenomenon of having somebody who clearly shouldn't be there anymore. And Missouri dealt with that years ago with a congresswoman from the Kansas City side, Karen McCarthy. But on the flip side of that, it would be a good time to talk about how, Shelley did an interview with Sally Faith, who Sally and her family have been a role model for saying, I have dementia, my mind is slipping. But here's what I'm doing now. Here's what we can do. And it's a blueprint for how folks who handle it. And it affects everybody's family.
I couldn't agree with you more. And it was very courageous of Sally Faith to do that. A person who's been in the public eye for a long time as a state elected official.
State rep, and then she was the mayor, correct?
Mayor of St. Charles City, yes, for a long time. So, hey, you know what? I got to go. I have no idea what happened to Shelley. Do one more, Shelley.
We love you.
Shelley,
it was great to hear your voice just momentarily, and I'll keep listening.
Hold on a minute. Hold on. Here she is. Shelley, are you there?
I am.
Do you hear your
biggest? We're all here together. Shelley, we were just talking about you.
Do you hear your biggest fan talking about you?
Well, I didn't want to interrupt.
Did you hear your biggest fan making fun of me?
Brad, I was not. I was paying homage to you, Brad. I was paying homage to your occasional haranguing of Shelley about singers from the 1990s who Shelley might not be up on their latest happenings.
Shelley, do I do that to you?
Every damn day.
And he's even see, John, I thought John was on my side, but he's on Shelley's side and the smartest woman in the world side.
Shout out to the smartest woman in the world. I hope she's listening today.
Hey,
jammed up on?
No, me? Hey, sincerely, John, I will tell you something, and I'm not kidding when I say this, and Shelley will agree. Just yesterday, Shelley said to me, I've been reading John Combest's book, and she says, what a great book that is, right?
It really is.
And give me the name of the book.
It's called Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, a guide to recovering and rebuilding after online attacks. And folks can find it if they go to Amazon. They can look up my last name, which is Combest, or they can just look up online attacks.
Right. If you just go to Amazon and in the search bar, you just type in John Combest, Combest, it'll show up.
And it's for anyone who's active on social media. If you express any sort of opinion on social media, chances are you've either been attacked or you're about to be attacked.
And I will
so this talks a little bit about how to handle it.
And I will just
And you
tell
never want to say the F-bomb on social media.
Okay. Yeah, I will say this: that for the price of your book, and what is it? It's like how much is it?
$12.99. Yeah, the Kindle is $7.99 and the paperback is $12.99.
For $12.99, you're getting advice from a guy who is a high-paid consultant or a high-paid comms guy from Monsanto who dealt with this kind of stuff on a daily basis. This is what you did. Your life was this, and essentially you're giving your people, or you're giving the people out there the chance to share your knowledge for $12.99, essentially.
Right. That's right. And I appreciate everything that you and Shelley are doing to spread the word about the book. I really do.
Yeah. Okay. Bye, John. Talk to you later.
Bye. Take care.
Okay.
Bye, John.
Shelley, are you?
I like that young man.
Are you?
I just do.
Are you okay?
He's pretty cool.
He's one of those guys that when you talk to him, you know that's like there's this IBM Big Blue computer in his brain that's just going 5,000 miles an hour.
Yes.
You know, it's just, and it's to the point where I would not, if he were like a debater, I would not want to debate him. You know what I'm saying?
No, he knows how to pick his words on the fly.
Right. He could bury me in like 30 seconds.
He couldn't. I would love to see
And I'm thinking
that.
to myself, don't you think he'd make a great attorney?
I do.
I mean, even though he makes fun of attorneys because of the fact that he can put things so succinctly and not do the corporate speak thing, you know? Hey, you know what time it is? It's 7:03. I'm done for the day. I'm going home.
Are you?
No. We're all
I'm like, dude, I just got up for you.
Oh, hold it.
Don't even think about it.
Hold on a minute. Do I have it? No.
No.
Oh, no. Hold on a minute. Hold on. I'll do it the next break. Okay, I can't do it right now. Okay, here's what we're going to do.
What?
We're going to do, I missed a break, so I owe some people some commercials. It's 7:03. We're going to do the top of the hour ID, and Shelley always asks about that. Do the top of the hour ID commercials. We'll be back, okay?
Okay.
It's 7:03. It is BS.Show. I can still remember the very first time I heard that song. I thought to myself, what is that?
I remember the first time I heard that song too.
It was like Gregorian chants and
Yes.
some crazy weird music with, I have no idea what that instrument was. Then I learned it was an ocarina, and then I heard some lady in the middle go, and I'm going, what is this? I'm going, I love it. See, you know what's the sad thing nowadays is, and I don't want to sound like, well, you know, back in the day when they made good music, we play a lot of stuff that's really some great music, but there's a certain formula that's gotten to the point where, you know, once again, it's the death of rock and roll. There's no rock. I guess if I listen to Casey, I mean, I haven't listened to Casey in a long time. Do you ever listen to Casey anymore?
I have to say I do.
Do they play anything new, or is it just all like, hey, here's Led Zeppelin for the 9,452nd time on Casey 95? Is it ever anything like, are there any new rock groups coming around? Like, you know, Jimmy and the Frogs or something like that, you know?
No, probably not.
So it's all...
So you don't like Casey?
No.
Casey 95.
Okay, it's never been my number one station. And once
Because
again...
you like bubblegum music.
No, I like pop music. See, but yet what's interesting about it is, and let me tell you an interesting phase of in the radio business, okay? You know what one of the worst things that this is going back when I back in the 70s and 80s. You know what one of the worst things for a rock group to have happen to them? Let's pick a band like REO Speedwagon, okay? When REO Speedwagon first came out, they played the daylights out of them on Casey, okay? But when REO Speedwagon started having hits and we would play them on KSOQ, they would drop REO Speedwagon on Casey. They wouldn't play them anymore. Because of the fact, it's mainstream, it's pop, right? It's bubblegum. And the artists would be accused of selling out. Now, I'll give you a perfect example of a group that sold out. Chicago. To this day, I say that the original Chicago album, they're up to like Chicago 4,962 now, but the original album was called Chicago Transit Authority, and they got sued by the city of Chicago because that's the name of the transit system in Chicago, CTA, Chicago Transit Authority. And essentially they just shortened their name to Chicago. That original album, Chicago Transit Authority, it's a double album. There's like 28 songs or something like. It is one of the most amazing artistic works in the rock era. Now people go, what's he talking about? Chicago. Because of the fact that there is so much diversity. Matter of fact, there is a song to this day that I still enjoy, and it's the very first song on that album, on that double set album. It's called Introduction. And essentially, they take you through, and I think he starts out, hey, let me take you through the moods, and essentially, it's this song that goes all over the place. At one point in time, it's this rockin' song with this Terry Kath, shredding his guitar. The next minute, it's a slow ballad with a guy on the piano playing, and then the Rhodes electric piano, and then a guy playing trombone solo. When's the last time you heard a trombone solo on a rock song? You don't hear it. Then a trumpet solo, very slow, and then the thing speeds back up, and there's a vocal. I'm going like, and matter of fact, if you go on YouTube and you type in Leonid, Leonid, Leonid and Friends. It's these Russian guys who do covers of all these songs. And you type in Leonid, Leonid, and Friends Introduction. You will find that video. It's incredible. They do it note for note. And quite honestly, they do it better than Chicago did it. And it's so well done. And once again, everything nowadays is Pro Tools. You don't know what that is. Pro Tools is this.
I know what it is.
You know what it is. I mean, most listeners don't know what it is. Pro Tools is what's called a DAW, a digital audio workspace, whatever you want to call it, workshop, whatever. And it's essentially a computer program. And it's how almost all music is produced nowadays. And to the point where there's very little musicianship in most music nowadays. I could, you pick a song, that we play in the station, and chances are almost everything's synthesizers. And it's like, I told you this story about the guy was it Illmind? Remember I told you about him? Remember Illmind?
No. Okay.
The guy's name is, let me see if I can look it up. I can't remember his real name. I heard about this guy, of all places, on NPR. I'm thinking to myself, why would NPR? And it's a fascinating story. Let me look it up. It's this guy, and it's interesting because his parents got mad at him because he, as you say, failure to launch, okay?
Failure to launch.
He calls these things, let me look it up. They're called BLAP kits, BLAPKITS. BLAP kits. Okay, here it is right now. BLAP kits. Yeah, his name is, if you want to look at the site is BLAPKITS. And he talks about, what he does is, when he graduated from, I don't know if he graduated from high school or not, he would stay down in his parents' basement and he would record. He started out just doing drum tracks, and he would record a snare drum. He had a snare drum, and he would hit the snare drum with one kind of a stick. Then he would hit with another kind of a stick. Then he'd hit the snare drum. He had a thing where he'd put the snare drum in a live room. There would be reverb. Then he would put a blanket over the snare drum and hit the snare drum, and he'd hit it in the middle, hit it on the side, hit it here, and he'd record each one of those. And then he did it with a tom, and then our bass drum, and then he did it with a cymbal, and then he did it with a hi-hat. And he recorded all these things, and he would just...
He was on a roll. Time to go solo.
Yes. And what he started doing was he started selling those, and now he sells these things called BLAP kits, where, and get this, the black box bundle, every kit in one pack. It used to be $1,750. It's now $125. Here, let me see if I can play this real quick. I'll play this. I don't know if this is going to come across or not. This might not be anything. I
love BLAP kits. They give you inspiration if you don't have any. He paved the way. He's the pioneer.
Illmind BLAP kits and loops are dope. I decided to buy every single BLAP kit and loop kit that Illmind had to offer, and I'm telling you, it was one of the best investments I've made so far.
I recently copped the Illmind Black Box bundle. Crazy good deal, and I got like 30 gigabytes of stuff that I've just been playing around with. The drums are just crispy, like the kicks are more thumpy, the snares kind of have that.
Okay, so there's the video for it. To say what he does is he just sells essentially he sells beats. He started out just selling drums. Now he sells guitar riffs and things like
Slaps
that.
and beats.
So what he does is people buy these and then they make songs out of it.
Yeah.
and nothing against that, but he has one restriction. When you buy him, you essentially, you own him and you don't have to pay him royalties or anything like that. His one restriction is that if you get to be a successful song producer, artist, whatever, and you get a gold record or whatever, he has to be listed as a producer or a artist or something like that. So in other words, and they're
no compensation?
Right. You just have to name. In other words, he just gets listed. In other words, it's like an ego thing to him. Hey, man, let me see if I can do. But so what he does is these people buy his blap kits, and the rap community is huge on this. This is most of the rap songs to the point where this is how most of them are done. They're buying samples, they're buying beats, they're buying his blap kits, and they're just taking the things and they're looping it on Pro Tools. Now, Pro Tools is made by a company called Avid. This is nerd stuff. And Avid is huge in the motion picture industry. So this is the kind of stuff that essentially when they do soundtracks for movies, most of the times they're doing it in Pro Tools because most of the movies are now being edited or produced, whatever you want to call it, in Avid. I don't know what the actual program for the video is, but this is like almost how all movies are made. Back in the day, they used to go out and shoot film. They'd go develop the film. And then the editor would literally, they talk about, stuff on the cutting room floor. There would be a room where the editor would sit and he would cut out pieces of the film. Not anymore. It's all done with a mouse and a keyboard. Just like what we do. We back in the day, we used to cut up audio tape. We used to quarter-inch tape. You used to have a razor blade, and you have a grease pencil, and you mark where the spot was, and you put it on the splicing block, and you cut the tape, and you'd put a little piece of splicing tape on.
With an X-Acto knife.
Well, no, we use single-sided razor blades. This we use.
Oh, okay.
X-Acto blades were too hard to handle. Razor blades. You'd buy them. In fact, you go back to any radio station back in the 70s and 80s, and there was always a box of single-edged razor blades. Now, some people thought that was for moving
their wrists.
No, that was for moving the white stuff around on mirrors, but it was not for that. It was for cutting up, moving the white stuff around on mirrors. You get what I'm saying?
Oh. Okay. I wouldn't have thought of that, but okay.
But that was back in the day. First it was a razor blade, and then it was $100 bills. Remember, it was that kind of stuff.
Yeah, okay. I do.
No, that you rolled up. I'm sorry, you use a razor blade, and then you use the $100 bills as the straw. But anyway, that's a whole other story. We won't go there. So anyway, what am I talking about? I don't know.
Thank you for that titillating
Okay, Shelley,
conversation.
We talked about this when you weren't here last hour, but this club up in northern Illinois claims that the government shot down their balloon. Did you hear me talk about it? I'm going to call my son and ask my son. I'll call him next break, see if he knows about this. Essentially,
which son? 1, 2, or 3?
Number 1. Okay.
Oh, okay.
There's this thing called Pico balloons, Pico, 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 wherever you want to call it, and they're real small balloons. And these guys attach radio transmitters to them with a GPS thing, and they track them. And some of these balloons have gone around the world several times. And they're small little balloons they apparently, from reading the article, I didn't realize this. The FAA rules are that if it weighs less than 6 pounds, you don't have to have a license or anything. You can just put these things up in the air. So the interesting thing about this is, okay, we got the Chinese balloon, which we found out that the United States government knew exactly what it was from the time it lifted off an island off the coast of China. And they knew exactly where it was all the time. And the only reason it got to be a hubbub is the photographer. Remember we read that story the other day where we played that audio. The photographer from Wyoming who gets his telephoto lens out and goes, "What's that?" and takes a picture of it. And pretty soon it goes on social media. And then the government goes, "Oh, we don't know anything about that." But then it comes out that they know everything about that. So they didn't shoot it down until it got over the Atlantic coast. And then last weekend...
And it was big. It wasn't
right.
something that you really had to strain your eyes
Right. And then last weekend, it comes out that Friday, they shot down another one. And then Saturday, they shot down. And then Sunday. And it turns out these are all these hobbyist balloons. So they're shooting $400,000 Sidewinder missiles. I wonder, the smartest woman in the world... Does Boeing make the Sidewinder? I don't know if you know this. When you go across 370, if you're going like west on 370, you're coming out of St. Louis County and you cross over the Missouri right there, the whatever that bridge is, and you come into St. Charles County right there at what is that at Second Street?
The bridge over troubled water.
Okay, you know that plant right to your right that's just north of 370? That's where they make missiles. Did you know that?
I did not.
That's where the missiles are made, right? I can't remember which missiles are made.
Interesting.
That's one of Boeing's plants. They make missiles at that plant right there. So they shoot down a $120 balloon with a $400,000 missile. I mean, there's something about that. And the last one they shot down on Sunday, the first missile missed. So once again, asymmetrical warfare. How do you want to conquer the world?
Where did it go?
Well, they say it ended up in Lake Huron. You remember I kidded about the fact that some poor guys out there.
Did it implode?
I don't know. Some poor guys out. I mean, that is an interesting question. Did it explode? Is it underneath Lake Huron?
What is that called? Unexploded ordnance?
That
they have in Florida?
UXO.
Yes.
That's what my son has, his UXO license, which I am extremely jealous of him.
He's so jealous.
If you never heard this story, my son lives in Pensacola. My oldest son, Brett. And one day he tells me this story about how he has his UXO license from the government. I go, what the hell's a UXO license? And he says, it stands for unexploded ordnance. I go, you have an unexploded ordnance license? What happens is the Elgin, or is it Elgin or Eglin? I think it's Eglin. Eglin Air Force Base.
It is Eglin.
Is one of the largest bases in the country. And it dates back to pre-World War II. And in World War II, they used it as a practice range for artillery and bombs. And like bombs from planes and artillery bombs and things like that. So it's so huge that a lot of the base they don't necessarily use all the time. So what they do is they have certain parts of the base that they open up for people to drive their dirt bikes and side-by-sides and ATVs. But you have to check in every day. They have a different section, and you have to get a map, and you have to get a UXO license. And when you go through the guard check, because you have to go through the guard check onto the base, you have to show them your UXO license. And the UXO license teaches you about what unexploded ordnance looks like. And you're supposed to carry with you a roll of surveyor's tape. You know, when you get your house surveyed, they put those stakes in the ground. They stick those little streamers on it, show you where the stakes are. You're supposed to carry a roll of that with you. And if you see unexploded ordnance like a hand grenade or a bomb or something like that, you're supposed to mark a tree. You're not supposed to, hey, what's this? Let me see if it rattles. You're not supposed to touch anything like that.
What will this do?
Yeah, what if I could throw this? I wonder if
that's exactly what why you don't let me play with the buttons.
Right. I wonder what happens if I drive my car over it. No, you're not supposed to have your car in there. It's like I wonder if my dirt bike can ride over this. I'll use it as a ramp. No, you're supposed to mark like a tree or something close to where the UXO is, the unexploded ordnance, and you're supposed to, take, your little streamer, stick it on there, and then you're supposed to, if you have a phone, you're supposed to get a GPS Latin lawn, fix on it, and then you're supposed to go back to the guard check. Okay, at something, latitude, longitude, blah 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 blah. There's a tree to the right of it, 100 feet away from it. I put a piece of surveyor's tape on it, and then they send out the bomb squad to check it out. And matter of fact, there was one the other day I saw these guys do magnet fishing. You know what magnet fishing is?
I have no idea.
They have these great big monstrous super magnets, and they put them on a piece of rope. And these guys will go, especially like bridges. They'll stand on bridges that are over like rivers and stuff like that. That like the criminals, if they shoot somebody, and where do you get rid of the gun? When you drive over the river, you throw the gun in the water. So these guys get these big magnets on ropes, and they reel the ropes off into the water, and then they move them around on the bed of the river, lake, whatever it is, and the magnet's attached to metallic things, and they pull it up. So there's these guys, they're doing this, and they pull up a bomb. So it's like, and they call the police. It's pretty funny. I saw in the video. They call the police, and the police show up. Yep, put it down, get away. And they call some nearby army base, and the bomb guys, the EOD guys, come out and yep, it's a bomb, all right. Can you imagine that? It just happened the other day. I saw the video just last week. Every once in a while, to this day, World War II ended in 1945. Every once in a while, they will find a bomb when they're doing construction work. And this happened someplace in Germany where they got the video of it, where they found the bomb and they're trying to defuse the bomb, and they thought they had it to the point where they stabilized the bomb and nobody was near it, and it blew up. And stuff went everywhere. This was a bomb that was dropped by a bomber, probably an Allied bomber, the United States or Britain, because Britain bombed a lot of Europe as well too. I don't think the Russians bombed any part of Europe, at least that part of the western part of Europe. And they still find these. Every once in a while, you'll hear of a story of some guy, will go through his grandparents, his grandparents is dead or something like that. And they go through some of his stuff in the attic, and they'll find a hand grenade. And it's a live hand grenade. Because back in the day, they don't do that anymore. Back in the day, hold on a minute. In World War II, you could bring home battlefield, stuff. There's all sorts of, to this day, there are guys that from their fathers or grandfathers or great-grandfathers in some cases have German Lugers, which were picked up off the battlefield in Europe, and they brought them back. Now, today, can't do that anymore. Because of the fact that, think about it for a minute. You got to go through the airport.
Yeah.
Back in the day, and what do you have to do at the airport? Go through the metal detectors. No, go through the metal detectors. Back in the day, think about it. Back in the day, like my dad. When my dad came back from World War II, he was on a ship after they defeated the Germans in Europe. He was on a troop ship headed toward Japan because he was going to invade Japan. But instead, they dropped the nukes on Japan, and the troop ship turned around and went to Seattle. So my dad came back to St. Louis. He came. They got into port in Seattle. From Seattle, he took a train all the way to Jefferson Barracks down in South County. The train ended right there. I don't know if there's still train tracks going there anymore or not. And anyway, he got off the train. They had their last time when he was last minute of active duty. They all stood in formation. Whoever the officer dismissed them, and they were given either a bus token or back in the day they had streetcars. My dad took a streetcar token from Jefferson Barracks to his aunt's bar in North City. So in other words, he could have had all sorts of stuff, and I think he did. I think he did have a German Luger with him because he had one, and we think he brought it back from World War II, but we don't know what happened to it. Isn't that terrible? We think somebody who worked at our house stole it. Isn't that terrible?
I've actually thought that about sometimes, and about some of the stuff that I had of my parents.
That somebody stole it?
Mm-hmm.
Who would ever steal anything from your parents?
Anybody.
Okay, we have to take a break, and we will be back. It is 7:30.
That is such a somber note, Brad.
Well, I'm lapsing into it's NPR. I'm Brad, and she's Shelley. We'll be back in a moment.
It's 7:31.
No, you didn't say that right. Say it NPR-ish.
It's 7:31.
Very good. It is Tom Jones and it's BS.Show, and it's Friday. I can play that kind of stuff, and that's even a one Shelley likes. You like that song, don't you?
I love that song.
Reminds you of your mom, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah, your mom was into that kind of stuff. She liked the show kind of stuff, the brass, the Sammy Davis Jr., the cocktail music, whatever they would call it, right?
And who was the one that was just singing?
That was Tom Jones.
She used to date him.
No, get out.
She did.
Get out.
It was years and years ago when she was a younger woman, but yes. My mom was movie star material.
Hold on a minute. Your mom dated Tom Jones. Well,
yes.
Now hold on a minute. Supposedly Tom Jones is notorious for having sex with thousands of women. Should I dare ask if? Well, I won't even ask that question.
How would I know that?
I don't know.
I wasn't even born.
Maybe your mom told you. Hey, Shelley,
no,
once upon a time was this singer named Tom Jones.
Private.
And shall we say we hit it off? No? You don't think that would ever happen?
No. Mm-mm.
Okay.
But she did tell me that she used to date that man.
Okay.
She was beautiful, strikingly beautiful.
You sure it wasn't Tom Jones, the South County Lincoln Mercury dealer who was on South Lindbergh? It wasn't him?
Pretty sure, Brad.
Okay.
She was a shoe model. She was in that socialite.
And he had foot fetish. You're right. They probably did meet, right?
Oh, stop it. Ew.
Okay. Hold on a minute. I've got to get serious for a minute. Okay. Did you hear? And you know what? I have to tell you that I now feel sad for the guy because I think he's being used as a pawn. You know who I'm talking about?
The president?
John Fetterman. Remember?
I saw something about him, and I was going to text you and say, is this the one that went up against Dr. Oz?
Yes. And the story is, first off, he's an interesting-looking guy. He's like, and I'm not exaggerating, he's like 6'9" and weighs like 400 pounds, and he looks like something out of a super villain music or movie. He looks like somebody who'd be chasing Spider-Man around or something like that, okay? He's just a strange-looking dude, plus he dresses weird and a whole bit. Okay, he was the lieutenant governor of Pennsylvania, and he ran for the Senate seat against Dr. Oz. And right before the campaign really got heated, he had a stroke. Okay, once again, my mom dealt with people who had strokes, and it's a terrible thing to have happen to you. Some people can recover from it. A lot of them don't. And he lost a lot of his cognitive abilities to speak and to listen and things like that. You remember,
which is really a hard thing to deal with.
It's terrible. It's to me.
Yes, it is.
It's my worst fear. I'll be honest with you. I hope that if I'm going to go, next week, that I get hit by a tractor trailer and I'm dead before I'm dead before I know what hit me. Or they shoot down a Pico balloon and they miss and a harpoon missile hits me and I'm vaporized in seconds and I didn't feel anything. Okay, so anyway, he can't. Remember during the election, he couldn't make any appearances. And when he did make, hold on, had to sneeze. Okay. Anyway, when he did make appearances, he talked for like 30 seconds, and he wouldn't make any sense. And remember, they had this deal where when he was in the debate, they had to have someone close caption and stuff because he said he couldn't hear. And matter of fact, he says that everybody sounds like Charlie Brown's teacher. When Charlie Brown. Okay, so he wins over Dr. Oz, and he's inaugurated last month. Okay, last week he ends up in the hospital because he's dizzy. Okay. Yesterday, he gets out of the hospital over the weekend. Yesterday, he checks himself into Walter Reed Medical Center in, where is that, Virginia or someplace. It's a D.C. hospital. It's usually the military hospital, because he's got depression. And once again, there's all these doctors coming out and say, well, depression is sometimes a unfortunate situation that comes along after a stroke. People get depressed. And they said he's always been depressed. Okay, look. I'm not making fun of the guy. I feel sorry for the guy because it's like Weekend at Bernie's. The Democrats knew that they could beat Oz, and they could probably put up a Chihuahua to beat Dr. Oz because if you know the whole story, the people in Pennsylvania didn't like Dr. Oz because they said he was a carpetbagger. He didn't really live in Pennsylvania. He really lived in New Jersey, and I think he graduated from medical school in Pennsylvania. I don't know the whole story. And there are the people who didn't like him because he has dual citizenship. He still has citizenship in Turkey. So they put this poor guy up who can't talk, who can't walk, and they put him in the Senate. And there was something I just read 2 weeks ago that talked about, all the senators are loving working with John Fetterman because he carries around some iPad or something like that. And when somebody talks to him, he holds up the iPad in front of their mouth, and essentially then he looks at what they said because he can't understand what's coming out of their mouth. And I'm going like, this guy is a senator, okay? Once again.
But there's nothing to say that you can't be disabled and not be a senator.
Okay, I will say this. Shelley used to work for the FAA, okay? Let's say I was an air traffic controller, and I had a stroke, and I came back to work, and I couldn't understand what the pilots were saying to me. And I would say, yeah.
Then what they would do was they would either make reasonable accommodations and try to accommodate you, whatever that may be. Or if you could no longer do the job that you were hired to do, they would put you on a retirement.
But I'm talking about
disability retirement.
Okay, let's say I had a stroke and I applied to the FAA to be an air traffic controller and I could barely talk. And they say, well, sorry, you can't talk. Right? It would be like me saying, I want to be a doctor, but yet I can't, I've got Parkinson's disease and I can't hold my hands, There comes a time when everyone, me included, has to say, you know what? I can't do this job anymore. I can't perform the duties of this job. And especially,
I had to do that.
well, I get it. And you walked away from the FAA because of medical conditions. I understand that. And I applaud you for that. But there comes a time when if you're becoming one of 100 in the entire country, a senator, if you can't do the job, then don't do the job. Resign. Get out of there. You know, it's like Barbara Boxer. We talked about her. She's got Alzheimer's so bad it comes out, was it just Monday or Tuesday? The announcement came out from her office that she was retiring, and there was a quote in there from her saying, "Hey, I'm so sorry. After all these years, I'm going to call it quits after this session is over." And then she walks out of her office, and the press talks to her, and she doesn't know anything about it because she can't remember it. She shouldn't be a senator anymore. There should be
I feel her pain.
Well, it's sad when that happens to people, but there comes a point when, like, look at athletes. There comes a point when even Tom Brady, who was like the superhuman robo-football player, says, you know what, it's time for me to stop doing this. Because, you know, and you know, the crazy thing about it is this past season, well, he didn't do very well with the team. He still set records. I mean, here's a guy who's 45 years old, still playing in the NFL. He's like a superhuman kind of dude. You know what I mean? There aren't too many. I mean, the average life expectancy or the average career expectancy for someone in the NFL is like 2.5 years. You know, I mean, so many guys make it to the NFL. I mean, only so many guys make it to the NFL, and you're playing on the highest level. If you're one of the best people, I mean, think about it. Patrick Mahomes can rightfully say he's the best football quarterback in the world right now. Because, first off, they don't play football in other countries. But if they did, they could kick anybody's butt because we've got the best football players in the world right here in the United States playing for the NFL, okay? The Kansas City Chiefs are the world's best football team. And there's nobody here in St. Louis, I guarantee you, of all the kids who are playing high school football, there's probably, right now, sophomore, junior, seniors, every kid who's playing high school football, maybe one, maybe two in the entire St. Louis area will ever make it to the NFL. Ever. Just doesn't happen because you're playing on that super rarefied air of being an NFL football player. And once again, if Patrick Mahomes, remember the whole thing with the Super Bowl right before the halftime, he gets tackled and, oh my God, he's limping, he can't. And he sucks it up and comes back out and wins the game. Okay? He's superhuman. The guy is like he will be something that 9 million men will never be. He will be something that 100 million men will never be, a Super Bowl champion. But yet there's going to come a day when Patrick Mahomes is going to say, you know what, I can't do this anymore. And he's going to walk away. You know what I'm saying? Everybody has to have that day. They have to have that day when I can't do the job anymore. I can't set. And once again, if you are a senator, there comes a time when you have to say, you know what, this is not about me. It's about the country. I have to quit and resign. But they won't do that because you know why?
Why?
Because it's 51-49, and if he walks away and they put in a Republican senator or they have a real, election for it, it could be 50-50. We can't have that. God, what a world! What a world!
What a world!
Okay, we have to take a break.
Okay, 7:45.
You win some, you lose some, and some get rained out. The most important thing in life is dress out for every game. 7:46. It is BS.Show. Who does not like that song? Ray Orbison, the late great. 7:50. Good morning. It's a Friday morning. I can get away with playing music that I normally don't play because Friday's the best day of the entire week. Remember going to school? You couldn't wait till Friday came around because you didn't have to listen to that stupid teacher for another day because Saturday morning was cartoons, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And by the way, Julia Roberts.
I was going to say, I have this mental block in my brain about Julia Roberts. I cannot remember her name. I cannot. Okay, now I'm going to make a phone call here. We're going to see if this person answers. Man, I'm working the phones this morning, aren't I? Working those phones. Calling you, calling John Combest. I'm not going to say who I'm calling because he probably won't answer. Well, hey, it's me. You're on the air. Don't cuss.
Okay.
Did you, this is my son, Brett. Did you see the article I sent you yesterday about the balloon boys? You didn't see this?
No.
Okay, the military shot down the 3 balloons after they shot down the Chinese balloon near you, right? Did you see that balloon go over your house in Florida?
No, I didn't see any of them. I know the one that went out in South Carolina. Jamie's family saw it, went right over Columbia.
Okay, so a group of balloon enthusiasts came out yesterday and said, hey, that balloon you guys shot down, it was our balloon. They called them a Pico balloon. Have you ever heard of this before? I thought you'd know about this.
No.
They're small balloons, typically like very small balloons, and they put a payload on the balloon, and most of these guys are ham radio operators, and the balloons have a GPS unit which is tied into a radio data transmitter, and it transmits its position around the world. And some of these balloons have gone around the world 2 and 3 times, and they're like cost is between $20 and $120. You don't know about this. I thought for sure you'd know about this.
No, I did not know about that.
But don't you find it interesting that they're shooting down $120 kids balloons, or hobbyist balloons with $400,000 Sidewinder missiles, right?
Yeah, that's the funniest part of all of it is.
So
yeah, you're running around shooting Mylar balloons with.
Well, see what I didn't, I didn't know this, but apparently there's a certain amount of helium you put into the balloon, and it reaches a certain height. In this case, they said when this balloon was shot down, and it's funny because the Army's Air Force said they shot down the balloon at 40,000 feet, and these guys, this balloon club in Illinois, said that their balloon, when it last transmitted to them, the altitude was 39,820 feet. So that's got to be their balloon. Okay, but it's interesting, I didn't know this, that when the balloons get to a certain height in the atmosphere, they reach equilibrium, and they just stay there at that altitude forever.
They won't. There's not enough pressure to push the gas out of the balloon.
Yeah. Essentially, and the atmosphere becomes very thin. The air becomes very thin out there. And they say it's an art to be able to figure out, and there's a mathematical calculation you have to put. If the balloon and the payload weighs X amount of weight, you have to put in so many cubic feet of helium, and then you let the thing go, and it'll go up to the altitude. And it's interesting because they say that it's legal under 6 pounds. There's no FAA regulation, and these guys are ham radio operators. But there are some countries that they are not allowed to transmit over because they don't have an agreement with whatever the international organization is. So these guys geofence the balloons, so when they're over these countries, the transmitter stays silent. And then when it leaves the country's airspace, it goes back into transmitting mode, and they know exactly where it's at. They know latitude, longitude, altitude, the whole bit. And $120. I thought you'd know about this.
Nope. We went and shot all these guys' toys down.
Right. We're firing $400,000 Sidewinder missiles at 2-foot Mylar balloons. Matter of fact, I don't know if you heard this or not. We laughed about it on the air that one of the spokespeople said that the balloons could have been used car lot balloons. Remember when I was in the balloon business? Remember that?
Yeah. If it were me, I wouldn't bring that to anybody's attention that they're shooting down used car lot balloons with F-22. That's just I wouldn't let the public know that, because that seems like a gigantic waste, and you look like an idiot.
Yeah, they're only $400,000 a piece. Okay, you doing okay?
Yeah, a little sick right now, but
you sound a little bit like a head cold or something like that. Don't tell me you got the vid.
No, I don't know what it is, but yeah.
Okay.
Jamie brought it home from the cesspit that is her work, and she had it all this week, and now I've got it.
That's a terrible thing to say. Okay, have a good day. I'll talk to you later. I love you. Bye.
Love you too, bud.
My son, Brett, who I'm surprised doesn't know about the
cutest thing in the world.
Of what?
Is when you call your kids.
Well, my daughter won't talk to me.
Well,
she's an attorney. That's why she won't talk to me. She's afraid I'm going to get her in trouble.
I can kind of understand that.
I'm like, what am I going to say? Hey, that Smith case? The guy's guilty as hell. I would never say that.
Stuff like that.
No, I would never say that.
Yes, you would.
It's my son,
anyway,
Brett, who is just a savant of a kid. I have 4 kids. They're all super smart. They got it from their mom, not from their dad. And they've all been so smart to stay away from my industry, stay away from the radio business, the media business, do something that's productive. My son has a great job down in Pensacola. See, I still think the world of him. It was one of those things as a parent where there were things that happened to him in St. Louis that just weren't good. I mean, and some of it was, his own doing. Maybe of the 100% of things that happened to him that weren't good, 10% was his own doing. 90% was just wrong place, wrong time. Had a job that went nowhere. Had a job that they shut down the company. Companies were bankrupt, that kind of stuff. And one day, he came home and said, my friend Devin, who was a high school buddy, who married a lady from the Navy, and she was stationed out in Pensacola. And he said, I'm going to see Devin. I'm going to ride my motorcycle down there. We'll go, what? I'm going to ride your motorcycle down to Pensacola, Florida? Yeah, I'm going to ride my motorcycle Pensacola, Florida. Gets on his motorcycle, literally backpack on his back, helmet on, drives down to Pensacola, Florida, comes back a week later. Hey, Mom and Dad, I don't live here anymore. I've decided I don't like the area. I'm moving to Pensacola. I already rented an apartment. A week later, I'm helping him load up his truck, putting stuff in a U-Haul trailer, and he's gone. And I didn't see him for like 2 years. And
you did see him though on Christmas.
Well, he's lived down there. I guess he's lived down there 6 years now, 6 or 7 years. It's been a while.
You've been down there almost every Christmas.
No, I didn't go this past Christmas because
I'm talking about when he first went down there. That's what you did. That was your jam.
I've been down there, I think, 4 times to see him. I go down, I drive. And people, I tell this story. People go, "What?" I leave on Christmas Eve morning, 5:00 in the morning. I drive down to Pensacola on Christmas Eve. Him and I go out to dinner. And the last time it was with his new girlfriend, Jamie. We go out to dinner. I go back to my hotel. I leave at 5:00 on Christmas morning, and I'm back here in St. Louis by 5:00 in the evening on Christmas night. And I usually, and the crazy thing about it is that in Pensacola, there's a bunch of restaurants that are open on Christmas Eve. I don't think there's any restaurants here in St. Louis that are open on Christmas Eve. Do you know of any ones that are open on Christmas Eve? We went
over in St. Louis.
Last time we went, we ate at Texas Roadhouse. At a place, isn't that what it is? Texas Roadhouse. We ate at Texas Roadhouse down there, and all the times before that, we ate at Outback. That's where we ate. And that was my, and out and back. So, okay.
Out and back.
Out and back, yes. That was my trip, out and back. And you know what? I told you the story the last time I drove back. Once again, Shelley accused me, you drive 40 miles an hour on the interstate. Had a guy pass me probably doing 140 miles an hour. I'm driving a Mustang. I'm coming through Mississippi on Highway 45. 4-lane divided highway, but it looks like an interstate, but it's not. And I think to myself, okay, I'm just going to fall in behind that guy. If he gets nailed by radar, it won't be me, it'll be him. So I just drive up behind him, catch up with him, and I'm doing about 120, 130 miles an hour northbound.
Oh, of course. I don't think so.
Honest to God.
No.
I mean, I thought to myself, what am I going to do? Is a cop going to pull me over on Christmas morning, give me a ticket? No way.
And you got the windows down and the G-force are sitting there, pulling at your face.
120 miles an hour. 120.
For how long?
A good half an hour.
Who caught you?
Nobody. Finally, he turned off. That's why I'm going like, okay, I'm not doing that anymore because I'm not going to be the guy who's the front guy doing 120 miles an hour. I want to be the guy behind the guy doing 120 miles an hour. You know what I'm saying?
Officer, I was just, going with the flow of traffic.
Exactly. I was just going with the flow. I didn't even look at my speedometer. I was just following that guy in front of me pretty slow. Oh my God, 120.
I just saw their hair blowing out of the window and I thought, oh my gosh, that's so nice. I want that too.
If you've ever been up early on Christmas morning, it's very strange because it's a strange quiet that you don't normally hear.
Right.
If you live,
that's true.
If you live near an interstate, the interstates, there's nobody on the interstates. I was driving from Pensacola to Mobile on I-10. That's how I go. I go west, leaving Pensacola. I go west on 10.
You go through the tunnel.
Well, I go west on 10. And at one point in time, on Interstate 10, which is a major east-west interstate in the United States, it's the southernmost one, I could look out my window, and it's flat down there. I could look out my window, probably see 4 miles ahead of me, could easily see another 4 or 5 miles behind me, see the other traffic. I'm the only car. There's nobody else around.
Nope.
It's like some kind of.
It was like the day after COVID.
Right. It's like some crazy weird movie where the aliens come down and grab us all, and and we're all, and there's only one guy left, and it's me, and I'm out on Interstate 10. It's just
and
bizarre.
I am legend.
And there's nobody around, and even you drive, like, I went through downtown Mobile, Alabama. I could have shot a rocket off in downtown Mobile, Alabama, and not hit anybody. I mean, there was just nobody around, just crazy. That's the only time of the year when it's like that. One day out of the year, 6 o'clock in the morning, 5 to 7 o'clock in the morning, and Christmas morning, there's nobody on the streets. It's just deserted because everybody's at home, tucked in bed, getting ready to open up their presents. In my case, standing at White Castle, wondering why they're not open. You know what I'm saying?
They're open 24/7.
No, that's my pet peeve in life is they places say open 24 hours a day, and you go there and they're closed. Okay, so which hour?
They're closed?
Yeah, White Castle closes on Christmas. Didn't you know that?
No.
Yeah, they close on Christmas and Thanksgiving. I think they're closed on Easter, too.
They didn't used to.
Oh, they are now. They're closed on Easter. I know they're
back in the 70s
Christmas,
and 70s and 80s.
Christmas and Thanksgiving, they're closed. Yeah, they're not there. Okay, we got to go. We're over.
Oh,
we
that
can't.
Snuck up on me.
Yeah,
because I was late.
You've only done half the show. Oh.
Well, glad I could join you, Brad.
Shelley, go back to bed. And see, you've got a big fan in John Combest. He
is such a nice guy.
He makes fun of me, and he applauds the genius that is Shelley and the smartest woman in the world, and he denounces the stupidity that is Brad, right?
Actually, I kind of think he thinks quite well of you.
No, he doesn't. Okay.
Yes, he does.
We have to go. Say goodbye, Shelley.
Goodbye, Shelley. Peace and I fly.
Have you heard about Salt River Automotive? Not only are we open for business and ready to serve you, we are sponsors of the BS in the Morning Show on Westplex 107.1. Check us out on Facebook at Salt River Automotive LLC. See you soon.